Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Final Whistle. I'm Gene Wang, joined tonight by Scott Allen as we break down tonight's Redskins-Cleveland Browns game. Redskins win 24-23. We got a lot to get to, so let's get right to it, Scott. Give me two players that you stood out, one on the good side and one on the bad side.
We'll start with the good, and we'll start with the Redskins, and I'm going to go with the rookie wide receiver Ryan Grant out of Tulane. For the second straight week, really, he's kind of made us talk about him. We hear so much about Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon and Andre Roberts in this offense. Sure. And tonight, 4 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. Nice touchdown on the first drive of the second half. So he's making plays, and he could potentially be a guy like Marco Mitchell, who is a preseason all-star, but he comes in touted, and the Redskins have high hopes for him. So sure. It's good to see. And then on the dud side, I'm going to go over to the Browns and that QB competition that we heard so much about. Brian Hoyer and Johnny Manziel, just dreadful. I mean, Hoyer got the start, and the first 2 plays of the game, a botched snap and a sack, a false start on Joe Thomas. It was just the beginning. He finished with 2 completions.
Right.
Mike Pettin, I mean, used kind of an interesting strategy, rotating both Manziel and Hoyer in and out, and you kind of wonder if that kind of affected their ability to find a rhythm.
Yeah, sure.
Hoyer just looked awful, and Manziel, who we heard so much about, really struggled. I mean, misfired on his first few passes, took some sacks. The Redskins brought a lot of pressure on him, and he did not really live up to the hype tonight.
Yeah. 2 very good choices. As for me, my stud is Deshaun Jackson. There was a lot of anticipation about him finally getting on the field. He comes in right away, catches a 23-yard pass, makes a defender miss. He draws a illegal contact call. It's everything you expect from the guy. I mean, with him paired with Pierre Garçon, it's going to give the Redskins a lot of power a lot of ability to stretch the field on the outside. And then as far as the dud goes, Robert Griffin, not because he didn't look sharp throwing the ball at times, he did that, but some of the decision-making was a little questionable. He had that interception that should never have been thrown, and clearly getting down on the ground and sliding is still a problem for him. I don't know if it's a mental block, but we saw him take 3 wicked shots in that one run, and then when he tried to go down the other time, he came up limping. I mean, it's almost like unnatural for him to slide, so that's something he's really got to get past, or else he's going to really risk further injury moving forward. Now let's get to 2 things that we each saw from the game that to take away from. Go ahead, Scott. Why don't you give us your 2?
Sure. As bad as Hoyer and Manziel looked, I think you've got to credit the Redskins defense for some of that. They looked really good against the Patriots starters last week, and then tonight the Browns ran 9 plays in the first quarter, 3 consecutive 3-and-outs. Ryan Kerrigan with a huge game. The first sack was kind of a cheapie on the botched snap, like I mentioned, but the second one, just a bull rush, and capped by Brian Arakpo taunting Johnny Manziel with the
saw that
with the
saw
money
that,
sign.
yeah.
That was one of the highlights of the night. So the defense looked solid again, and then the other takeaway for both teams, really, right down to the final 45-yard desperation heave that the Browns pulled down, just kind of sloppy all around. More than 20 penalties on both sides of the ball. I'd say the Browns looked a little bit sloppier, but really no rhythm, especially in that first half. I think the idea that we had to sit through a second half just waiting for something to happen was a painful first half.
Sure. A couple of things I saw. First was the coaching staff, Jay Gruden, obviously in his first year, and Jim Haslett. They get called for unsportsmanlike conduct. Obviously, that can't happen in the regular season. And this is Jay Gruden's first stint as a head coach in the NFL, but he's been head coaches in other leagues. So you got to lead by example, and you got to keep your cool if you want the rest of your team to kind of follow suit. And Haslett's been around for a long time too. So I'm sure when they started the film, they'll say, we should have done better. And then my second takeaway was an inability to finish. And we saw three drives where the Redskins first team moved the ball between the 20s, but that fumble by Alfred Morris inexcusable, and then RG3's interception, and then they can't punch it in from the goal line. So you can move the ball between the 20s, but that ultimately doesn't matter unless you get points off of it. And Skins were not able to do that tonight. They're going to have to clean that up going forward. So that's a wrap from the Final Whistle. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.